Give it a second here as I read our chat with Tony A asking, what do you think of the Eagles draft? I'll tell you what I think, Tony, in just a minute. Welcome to the Awesemo Morning Show. Dave Loughran, Josh Engleman, and Ben Rasa. It's a brand new day. In just a minute. Welcome
beautiful,
to the
beautiful
Awesemo
overlay
Morning Show. Dave Loughran, Josh Engleman. We've made some changes around here, putting in some work. Namely, thanks to the help on the back end. Boys, it's time to talk a little sports today, a little bit of draft, a little bit of what the hell did the Eagles do. I thought Thursday night was bad. It only got worse. Jameis has a home, and we got a whole lot of issues talking timeshares, not in the Bahamas, but more so in the NFL backfields. Ben, what's going on?
Happy Monday. Yeah, we got a lot to get to. The Eagles, man, we're going to get there. I'm excited. We got, thanks to the people behind the scenes. I love the new look. We got a little PTI feel going. Some real good topics for Monday morning.
Josh, what's up, brother?
Not too much. Feeling good. Good weekend. It was nice weather here. We got to get out, played a little cornhole yesterday, grilled some burgers. It was a good Sunday. Gorgeous. 70 degrees, bright blue skies. What Beautiful. Quarantine?
Well, now we're back. It's Monday. Around me, it's rainy. It's nasty. We're supposed to be getting rain for the next week plus straight, which just makes life even more miserable. But that's okay because we're here and we're getting into all of it. I wish I had more on the DFS developments front, Ben, but we do have a couple of things. Look, we don't have a lot changing, and we want to give you these developments at the start of every show because things change. And ultimately, we're going to start getting more news flowing in the longer this quarantine and these stay-at-home orders stay in place. But we don't have anything really that serious as of now, outside of a couple things. Like some states are beginning to slow open. Others are just rolling it back out there. But there was the news that the NBA facilities there are going to be able to be used, but I want to preface this with Adrian Wojnarowski, when he tweeted this, said it's not a sign that a return to the season is imminent, because even in looking at these facilities, a lot of it will be like individual practices and not group practices. So it's great that they're open, but I don't want to read too much into this. And I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to this.
I think we could all agree, though, if they are going to resume, this was a clear step that they needed to take. So if they never even got to this point, you're never going to have basketball. So this is a good first step. This should go off, I think, pretty much without a hitch. And then hopefully they can up this to having more collaboration, to having practices, maybe full team scrimmages or something like that. So good first step, still a long way to go.
Josh, the UFC also looks like we're in business. And there's some talk that Conor McGregor is going to be facing Nate Diaz in an island fight. Depending on who wins and loses some fights coming up, I think particularly in UFC 294, Dana White's not holding back, man. It looks like, if anything, in the early second week of May, we're going to have UFC 249. That's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for that card. I don't want to say that I have no interest in a Conor Nate fight, because that would be a preposterous statement. I would clearly watch it.
The third one, right?
Yeah, I would be shocked if they make that fight. And if they do make that fight, I think that's a very big sign of how much money the UFC is losing currently because of this coronavirus, because they are burning a fight that they don't need to and should not burn.
Really?
Yeah. So you never want to make that fight off of a Conor McGregor win. And he is coming off of a win. You always have the trilogy fight against Nate Diaz in your back pocket if something goes wrong. And you want to save that for times where you can't put Conor in a more high-profile fight, where you can just say, bang, get out there and get in it. Because as we move forward, I expect Conor to be a bigger and bigger favorite in a Nate Diaz fight than he, as time progresses. Nate's just going to keep himself further and further away from it. So if they do that fight, I think that's a sign that UFC is losing a lot of money.
We've also got the Arkansas Derby. The Arkansas Derby.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be lying if I told you I've heard of that before. But they've got a little bit of nuance to this, Ben. And I know you're going to be betting quite a bit. So what should people be paying attention to here? Assuming it goes off without a hitch. I don't see any reason it wouldn't. I think we're good, but they've definitely changed some things up.
Oh yeah, they're racing. There'll be no fans, but they've been racing at Oaklawn, which is where it'll take place. And it's this Saturday. I'll have an article posted on the Awesemo homepage breaking down, and I never thought I would say this, breaking down both Arkansas Derbies. So there were so many horses, they had to split the race into 2 separate races. So we have tier 1 and tier 2. It's not sorted by any skill level, but there are so many horses that are looking for the points to ultimately get to the Kentucky Derby. It's as loaded of a field as I've ever remembered for the Arkansas Derby. So ton of great horses, ton of guys we're going to see in the Derby, maybe in September or October at Oaklawn this Saturday. So I will certainly have content on that. It's an exciting development to see so much interest at Oaklawn.
Yeah, go to awesemo.com. Check all of that out. Ben's pumping betting content out left and right. Last thing I want to get here. The possibility of having neutral sites is where a lot of these leagues are heading towards, or at least exploring the ideas, Ben. I know Adam Silver had mentioned that until May 1st, they're not even going to start exploring any ideas legitimately. But I know there have been some articles that threw some, cold water on the idea of that. I still think teams are going to do everything they can to try and find a way to make this work. There's a ton of money involved. What do you think what do you think as of now, where we stand on April 27th, we're headed by, say, June or July?
So I think that getting things off the ground, starting with Bundesliga and then ultimately PGA, maybe MLS, I don't want to say it's not going to be difficult. I think it's very feasible. I still am wondering what happens if they hit a speed bump. Is any speed bump a total shutdown, or are they able to weather minor circumstances by continuing? Because if it's one person affiliated with any of this gets tests positive, we shut down the sport for 2 weeks. I feel like it's almost impossible to skirt that, and that's my big concern.
All right. If you haven't checked our esports, what's up, Josh?
Just agreeing. My bad.
If you haven't checked out our esports package yet, awesemo.com/join esports. It's been a successful ride thus far. Let me tell you, I knew nothing about esports at all.
Me neither.
Nothing about it at all. But it turns out Alex Baker did and does. And that's why he has projections and ownership. And the top stack tool that we've used for baseball that was so helpful for baseball is equally helpful for League of Legends. Awesemo Plus, and it's the esports package weekly. You can get monthly. You can get an express weekly package with all our premium articles, projections, ownership projections, the top stack tool. It's all in there at awesemo.com/join esports. And there's simple ways to join if you're, maybe hurting right now, the economy taking a hit. You don't have enough to put out for a monthly pass. We have the express weekly, really affordable. So is the weekly if you want to just give it a shot. And assuming you have success, you want to re-up for a month. All of that's doable at awesemo.com/join esports. So staying on this for a second. You know what? No, let's go to DraftKings. Let's go to DraftKings. The IPO, they're public now.
Crazy.
They're public. They saw a 14% increase in their stock price on day one on Friday. It fell back down a little bit to 8%. What a strange time to be going public, though, with no sports actually happening. I get there's a huge process with all of this. You don't just say, like, tomorrow we're going public. Very much understand the process, or at least, to some extent. But it is a strange time for DraftKings to be going public and then see their stock gain 14%, finally settle in at 8% on their opening day.
I'm fascinated to see what their financial information looks like over the next year that has to become public for this. Their annual reports are going to be really interesting reads for our industry, and probably pretty eye-opening to people once we find out sort of the way that their money is being spent.
Yeah, I I don't know, Ben. I look at the DraftKings IPO. I look at them going public, and I don't really know if there's anything that we can compare it to.
No, I mean, listen, there's subsidiary with Diamond Eagle at the top. And what's interesting to me, obviously, is the sports betting aspect of it. They're certainly long-term positioned really nicely as more and more states are coming on. You know, we've done a rundown over at the site of like where each state stands, and I was part of that. It's amazing how many states are on the cusp of pushing through, getting mobile betting. And once that happens, I mean, how many people in those states are just going to use their existing DraftKings accounts if they're up and running? That seems like the big push that they're going to make. They have to weather this storm, but I think that's why people even immediately are pretty optimistic.
Jameis Winston is the newest member of the New Orleans Saints. I really wanted Jameis to go somewhere that he could be a contributor, and I thought there were teams that could happen with, specifically teams like Los Angeles Chargers. I still get that one wrong. It's never going to stop. They get Justin Herbert, understood, but I feel like there are so many teams that could have at least to some extent used him. The Patriots, where I said Bill Belichick said, screw it. There's nobody here. We're not even going to take a quarterback, Josh. So now you've got Jameis with the Saints. You got Taysom Hill signing an extension. This is a really interesting breakdown. The only thing I wonder now is there any way that I guess Jameis Winston as a backup is not a bad option at all.
Yeah, like I guess it all comes down to just, do you have the money to make this move? Because obviously you would happily sign Jameis Winston if it doesn't affect the rest of your franchise. No brainer signing. Like, you just saw a season where Drew Brees missed a bunch of games. Bridgewater was able to plug the hole. Certainly reasonable that you would want to try to do the same thing the year after. It's not like Brees is getting any younger. I mean, obviously none of us are getting any younger, but Brees obviously up there in age. If you can make that happen without having to sacrifice anything for the team, great idea. Great idea from Jameis too. This is a really great situation to put himself in, especially if he has to play. Let's say the exact same thing happens and he has to play the same amount of games that Teddy Bridgewater played this year and looks, I don't know, decent, I guess. A couple less mistakes for Jameis. What does he get paid next year?
It's a great question, Ben. It's a great question because there also was no viable backfield in Tampa Bay, where you're talking about Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. Now you have Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, two guys that are very capable of running an offense on their own, along with Michael Thomas, who can make any quarterback look way better than they are. Teddy Bridgewater caught a big contract going to Carolina, which to me was insane. It's a very good point Josh makes, that now that Brees especially is getting older, it's not crazy to think that Winston comes in as the backup. It certainly won't be Taysom Hill. We know that Sean Payton's not on board with that.
So that's my one thing. I think this is great for Jameis, and I don't even mind it for the Saints if you think, all right, injuries, we have the best backup in the league stepping up. The future, Jameis is still relatively young. But then why are you giving Taysom Hill $16 million guaranteed if he's not your guy? If no matter what happens, even an injury, he's not your guy. Like, is he that valuable as a gadget player? That's the one thing I really don't understand in this whole situation.
Bing says Brees already got a TV deal. I don't understand why people are puzzled by this.
I don't really know what that means.
I guess he's saying that he expects him to retire.
Okay, then I still don't know why you sign Taysom. Like, if you want to make Jameis the next guy, I think that's really smart. I just don't understand where Taysom Hill fits into the long-term plans.
Yeah, is that confirmed that he actually did that though? I think he did. Yeah, he did, like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Okay. So he will be signing a deal with NBC Sports to ensure a spot as an NFL commentator for the network once he retires. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we can only assume he's got a couple of years left, but if he wants to stick around and he's playing at a high level, right, they're going to let him stick around.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how that works. And I don't know if this TV deal has a set time or if it's, okay, whenever you're ready, head on over to us.
Can I ask a really dumb question?
That's what
I
we're
would
here
love
for.
that.
Should teams be running more gadget plays?
Depending on your personnel, yes.
Yeah, my theory is if you're not one of the best maybe 5 teams, you should almost only run gadget plays. Like the worse you are, the more gadget plays you should try to run. That's my opinion on that.
Like, how many plays do you think Taysom Hill should be on the field for the Saints in a given game? Obviously, like, let's say randomly and not the Super Bowl.
Not many.
Oh, okay. Is that a Taysom Hill take then?
No, it's that the Saints are really good with a
Okay.
traditional offense.
We're going to get to the Eagles in just a few moments. And at this point, they're basically like, I will explain exactly what they're looking to do with their offense. I've put the pieces together in my head over the past couple of days, and some may like it, some may not. And we turn the page to the winners of this draft. They certainly weren't one of them. And it drives me insane, Ben, to think that the Dallas Cowboys were in fact a winner of this draft. It's crazy to me that they sniped CeeDee Lamb. They had a great overall draft, but the one team that did things exactly as I would have wanted the Eagles to do was the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos get Jerry Jeudy, and then they come and they grab KJ Hamler in the second round. So they go first round receiver, second round receiver. That's the type of team that, depending on their quarterback play, is going to have a very potentially explosive offense.
I'm going to take it a step further. In the 4th round, they added Albert O from Missouri, who's 6'6", 250 and a freak. He's obviously really unpolished, but they're pairing him with Noah Fant at the tight end position. You just mentioned Hamler and Jeudy, obviously have Sutton. Melvin Gordon is in the backfield. There's no excuses for Drew Lock. I know it's only, his second year, but this is it. This table is set for them. Everything you could want is at your fingertips. I'm super, super high on the Broncos. I thought they won the entire draft.
The whole draft.
Yep.
No question. I love it.
I loved what they did basically across the board.
Okay. Josh, who's the draft winner from 2020? And you cannot say the Broncos.
That's fine. I would not say the Broncos. Wisdom of the crowds on this one. I've got the draft grades up from 13 different sources, all aggregated together to create a essential, top and bottom. Minnesota Vikings coming in number 1 on that list. Broncos actually came in 8th. So Ben's about to burn this whole entire graphic down.
No respect. The Vikings had 15 picks. So it's kind of hard to place them because they just went such volume heavy.
Yeah, there's a couple teams that I think drafted really well. Some teams drafted for need. The Dolphins are one we can get into momentarily that I thought were very much were very much up and down. They didn't have a horrible draft, but they didn't have a perfect draft, or they didn't have a terrible draft, but they didn't have a great draft. There's a couple of instances in some of these teams where I don't really know if anyone did perfectly well across the board. I think the Cowboys did a good job of drafting for need. I thought the Panthers did well. They did not draft a single offensive player, by the way. They did not draft a single offensive player in this draft. The Bears took a tight end pretty early. Cole Kmet is interesting, but they have so many tight ends, and they literally haven't had a viable tight end since Zach Miller. They just cut Trey Burton. That's a concern. And saying they haven't really found anybody that can fill those voids, and they've had a lot of guys that could potentially do it. I like what the Bengals did. I think grabbing T. Higgins in the first pick of the second round is solid. I want to know where you guys are at on the Oakland Raiders, though, because they went out and they just went wide receiver. They went heavier wide receiver than the Broncos did. It was insane how many wide receivers this team looked to take. I almost said the Oakland Raiders, and maybe I did, but obviously
did.
Did I?
I
Obviously, well, we're gonna have to live with that one. Obviously meant the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, so they go with Henry Ruggs before CeeDee Lamb and before Jerry Jeudy. And then they take two more receivers in the coming rounds, in the coming 2 rounds. Is this a recipe for success? And can you surround here's the big thing for me. Can you surround Derek Carr with enough talent to actually make him successful? That's the big question.
Yes.
I'm pretty skeptical. I'm not going to lie. Also, the personnel, like certainly Carr's strength is not in the deep ball. Like when I think of Ruggs, I think of the deep ball. When I think of Lynn Bowden, who's, he played quarterback at times. He's explosive. I don't really think of the Raiders per se and what they're trying to do. Damon Arnett was the cornerback that they reached for. I didn't love what they did. I like that they peppered one position because you get multiple outs. But I was not super sold on the personnel considering that Carr is the centerpiece still.
I'm concerned that when you have deep threats, Josh, it's possible that they can make it easier for Derek Carr to get them the ball. And you say, all right, well, you can't overthrow this guy. But also a guy like Henry Ruggs, you're going to have him. Okay, he's going to benefit you in that you can hit him on bubble screens and you can hit him with the deep ball. But also the plays, are you going to be able to make him useful in his early, first and second year, outside of those 2 plays? Like a CeeDee Lamb or a Jerry Jeudy would probably be able to use them all over the field.
I have no idea what the Raiders are doing pretty much permanently with Gruden. Like he's just going to do whatever he wants, more so than I think any other team, where you're just like, okay, that's just Gruden being Gruden, I guess. We'll see if that works down the line. I mean, he has the job security to try everything that he thinks is a good idea, which I think is great in one regard and terrifying in the other if he is, past his shelf life, maybe probably the best way to say it. It's so hard for me to say what I think they're doing. They got a terrible consensus grade, 4th from the bottom of all teams across all of the drafts that I'm looking at. So in the grand scheme of things, I have to assume that this was a just absolute disaster for the Raiders.
And keep in mind, they're in the AFC West. We just talked. I think the Broncos are making moves. The Chiefs, I think, are set up well. And then, of course, the Chargers, but they drafted their future with Herbert. So the Raiders are falling behind the race just in their own division, it seems like already.
As crazy as it sounds, you're talking about an Eagles team that might actually have the most productive rookie wide receiver in year 1. And hear me out, right? Not because I liked that pick a lot. No, it wasn't because I love that pick a lot. And it's not because I don't think CeeDee Lamb is someone I'd much rather have on the team, or Jerry Jeudy. But I think there is an avenue here where CeeDee Lamb is playing alongside Amari Cooper, and he's got Ezekiel Elliott on that team, and he's got Michael Gallup. So you've got 3 receivers, 2 of which were 1,000-yard guys last year, and now he comes into the mix. Jerry Jeudy could be that guy. And Ben, I know you love Locke, and I'm with you on that, but we still haven't seen enough to know that this offense is going to be fine-tuned. Sure. There's also Cortland Sutton there. There's also KJ Hamler. They're going to have some guys that can contribute. As far as Jalen Reagor goes, it is more than feasible that Deshaun Jackson suffers another early injury, because that has just been par for the course with him. We're not just predicting injuries. He's always hurt. And Alshon Jeffrey has been a shell of his old self. So I actually do think it's possible that while I'm not in love with the pick, that from a fantasy standpoint, Jalen Reagor actually has immediate value because they're forced to use him where other teams aren't forced to use their rookie picks nearly as soon.
I mean, that seems super reasonable to me.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thoughts on Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. Certainly not my favorite wide receiver, but I just think he slides into Diggs's role really well behind Thielen. The one, I don't want to say pushback, Luffy, but do you worry that the flip side of that is that Jalen Reagor may be getting coverage that some of these other rookies won't, just because he could be viewed as basically one of the top weapons right off the bat?
It's very possible. Yeah. And again, it depends on what the injury situation is for the Eagles. It depends if JJ Arcega-Whiteside is actually going to make himself somewhat useful as a second round pick in 2019. There's a lot of question marks here, but as you see, we're talking about a team that drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. And my assumption at this point, when you look at their team, they just brought Marquise Goodwin on as well, which I actually don't have an issue with. Here's what it is now. And I'd be shocked if this isn't the exact model they try to follow. You've got Miles Sanders in the backfield. This guy looked legit, like a potentially elite running back last season. And now you have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert to eat up catches in the middle of the field. And then you're just going to try and surround them with 100% speed with Deshaun Jackson, Jalen Reagor, Marcus Goodwin, and hope that none of these guys get hurt. That's it. At this point, I don't know how there's anything different. And I don't know what's going on with Alshon Jeffrey. I really have no idea. Like when they run 3 receiver sets, I don't even know what they're going to look like. But they clearly made an effort to just put a ton of speed on the outside with Jackson, Reagor, and Goodwin. And maybe they're saying, okay, look, we have 2 big, competent pass-catching tight ends and a good running back. This could work. And I do think if they stay healthy, this could actually work.
Do they have a good running back?
What? Yes. Full stop.
Full stop, huh?
Yeah, I think he's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Miles Sanders is going to be very, very good.
28th in rushing last year on PFF.
Well, yeah, because he wasn't the starter until the final 4 weeks.
He was 3rd in receiving, though. The guy's catching 70-yard wheel routes. I don't worry
about best
about
grades either. Just saying.
So you didn't love it. So where does Jalen Hurts fit into this? Nowhere.
Oh, I think it's preposterous that they would do this. I'm 100% against it. And I couldn't believe there were people arguing in favor of it on Twitter. Someone said, we have to trust Howie. He's earned our trust. Which is if blind faith is how you go about your business, good luck living life. I just don't understand that. Dave, my buddy, I've worked with Davis Maddock for a long time. Davis said, I don't really understand why, or he's like, I don't think it's that bad, but Eagles fans seem to hate it. The reason, and I responded with, if we had done this and we didn't have glaring holes at other positions, like glaring needs at other positions, then I would get it. But you just gave Carson Wentz $128 million. You just re-signed Nate Sudfeld. And best case scenario is Jalen Hurts. Best case scenario is Jalen Hurts is scarcely used, or you use him very little, because that would mean best case scenario, Wentz is not hurt. Correct. Worst case scenario is Wentz gets hurt. Your $130 million quarterback is on the sidelines going through the same thing he did in 2017, where the city adopted Nicholas Foles as their newfound savior. It's just all around a bad move. It's not good for Wentz. It's not good for Hurts. And don't you want to have, didn't we talk about this with Jordan Love? Don't you want to have a quarterback on his rookie contract so you don't have to pay him monster money the first go around? None of it makes sense to me. And then they say they want to use him as Taysom Hill. Well, Taysom Hill was undrafted.
Correct. On all fronts. I don't see it at all. The other thing maybe I overrate this, but when you have a guy like that, Lamar Jackson is the extreme of you have to tailor the entire offense around him to give him. So if Wentz gets hurt, now you have speed wide receiver. You just laid out what we think the Eagles want to do offensively. Jalen Hurts is not the ideal quarterback for that type of scheme. He would be in a run-heavy RPO type Ravens system. So I don't know why a team like that would draft a guy in the second round that really doesn't complement Wentz, even in case of emergency.
Right. And if you wanted to develop something where like he comes in as a backup and that's the offense he runs, well, good luck ever practicing that with the first team. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. You're going to have a couple gadget plays in there that they're going to run for Hurts a few times a game. You can't run a whole offense like that because learning a playbook is enough. You expect the entire first team to learn an entirely different playbook, or you want Hurts to entirely change the way he plays the game, which why draft him at 53 overall if that's the case?
What's the dream scenario here, Laffy?
With Hurts?
Yeah, like how do they sell it? What's the sales pitch to you if you're trying to sell taking Jalen Hurts?
Oh, well, Howie Roseman said he wants to become a quarterback factory, which can we just take a step back and acknowledge that that's exactly what colleges are for?
Yeah, that's also the last thing you want to do is have multiple quarterbacks, right?
Yes,
isn't the goal to have one for 15 years? You're trying to get like a Toyota Camry.
Right. It's insanity to me. So when you ask like, what are they selling? They're selling. Here's exactly what they're selling. Okay. And someone says in chat, trade bait. Well, I'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
You don't draft somebody to trade them, especially when the hope is that they never play.
Right.
Right. So in the event that happens, the best you get is probably another second. And the worst case scenario is they do play. And now your quarterback who you just paid I'm repeating myself, 128 million is hurt. So the dream they're trying to sell is you can never have enough talent at quarterback because look what happened to us in 2017 where we won a Super Bowl. If we didn't have Nick Foles, we don't win that Super Bowl, right? That's the dream that they're selling us with the 53rd overall pick being Jalen Hurts. Okay. That's exactly what they're trying to sell us. But the problem with that is that I don't see, number one, how you want to be. What does a quarterback factory mean? Like, okay, so now you just want to make this guy the greatest backup in the league that hopefully never plays?
Yeah, I don't.
It's asinine to me. And again, now you're talking about an instance where you drafted him relatively early. You get these guys when they're young and you get a certain amount of years out of them before you have to pay them big money.
Yeah. Jared Mass said that
I'm at a loss.
They're two different offenses. Like that's the part that really gets me. There's just no way to like Nick Foles is, I think, certainly more of a comp to Carson Wentz than Hurts is. Just like I know RG3 is certainly not what you want, but I totally get why the Ravens have him behind Lamar. That makes perfect sense. He can run a lot of those same RPOs that make that offense so difficult to stop. It doesn't mean there wouldn't be drop off, but even in an emergency, if Wentz gets hurt, I don't understand why you would want to develop Jalen Hurts. Of all the quarterbacks, I would rather have Eason, even Fromm, who I'm not super high on, than Hurts specifically for the Eagles. I don't get it at all.
I think it's even crazier than that, by the way.
So Anthony Marcus says the goal is winning. Looks like it's gone, but it was something like if it helps them win, then it makes sense. Or I'm paraphrasing.
It's not going to help them.
Yeah, this does not help them win.
How does something help them when you cannot immediately contribute? A second round draft pick, in many cases, is an immediate contributor to an offense or to a team, right? Like immediately can contribute. Look at DK Metcalf. Look at Terry McLaurin. Not all of these guys, right? Not everybody, but you're drafting them with the hope that they will be immediate contributors. And there was a tweet, I think we talked about this on Friday, saying the second round of the draft has probably 25 guys that could have been taken in the first round in other drafts. That's how talent rich this draft is. So Any other spot where you're drafting best available, I kind of get it, like CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys. But drafting best available to somebody that literally cannot help you in year one unless you lose your $130 million quarterback is very concerning to me. And by the way, everybody's saying that it's a huge help. He's a huge help if Wentz gets hurt. He's a massive project anyway. So this is Ben, you always have this saying where you're like,
get it right twice.
Where in DFS, you have to get things right twice. And we try to avoid that. You have to get this right twice. You have to get right fact that you drafted a quarterback in the second round, but also he actually has to be good if Wentz goes down. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nate Sudfeld, I guarantee Nate Sudfeld ends up being the backup if Wentz goes down anyway.
Totally agree. Do you know the chance? Listen, you're not rooting for Wentz to go down, but the only way that Hurts is impactful is if Wentz goes down. Then you take that small percentage, or you could say it's a decent given his injury history. Then Hurts has to be ready to go and effective. So as you just talked about, it's not as simple as like, well, if Wentz goes down, this is a great pick. Because if Wentz goes down early, Nate Sudfeld, I would assume, sees the field. And it's not going to be Hurts.
That's what I'm saying.
And I
just
totally
paid
agree.
Sudfeld.
Yeah, that guy. I really don't listen. We talked about Jordan Love last week. Similar. And second round, that is not the opportunity cost is massive. There are running backs. There are so many skill positions. D-line. You could go anywhere and address a need rather than doing the Jalen Hurts situation. So very, very confused.
It's mind-blowing to me. Absolutely mind-blowing.
Alex Hahn says, Wentz will go down. Do you guys watch the Eagles play? I can assure you, I watch the Eagles play. I have not missed an Eagles game in a very long time. I watch the Eagles play.
Yeah. And you don't want Jalen Hurts to be the guy to put together a team that is live to win a Super Bowl this year.
Right. And do I think having a good backup is important? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You should have a good backup. Do I think banking on your your franchise quarterback going down and drafting a second round quarterback is the way to do it? No, I don't. I would have much rather signed Jameis Winston as a backup. I'm serious. I really would. Yeah. Like, not even close. Because
this makes no sense to me. I truly do not get any part of it.
Right. All of this is the problem. This is where the Howie backers run into an issue, right? Because Kevin Sully's Eagles are not live to win a Super Bowl. Dude, if that offense stays healthy, they definitely are live to be competitive.
They're live to win a Super Bowl. They have the 7th highest odds to win the Super Bowl. Tied for 7th.
If they're not live, then there's only a couple teams that are live.
And I hate the Eagles. I hate them with a raging passion.
But no, 7th best odds out of 32 teams, you're live to win a Super Bowl. Simple as that. Like, they're favored to win the division. They're base. Yeah. Okay. What, Cowboys are favored, but they have,
the Chiefs have the highest odds, and that's 14% roughly.
Yeah.
You're live at plus 2,000.
Yeah.
I mean, Tampa's the other 86%, let's be honest. But in theory, I guess the Eagles are live.
Look, no one's saying we think they're going to win it. What we're saying is when you're drafting and you're in a position to be competitive, same thing with the Packers, right? Same thing with the Packers. You have to draft to plug the holes and see if you can get guys that can immediately contribute.
Especially when your quarterback is the guy that you're trying to draft for here, and you just signed him to $100+ million and he's young.
Exactly. And that's the problem is when you're talking about, if like I said, going back to people that are backing Howie on this, that are all for it. Let's say Wentz does get hurt. Hurts still has to be the one to come in, and Hurts still has to be able to contribute in some form or fashion that makes it worthwhile, because otherwise it was a completely squandered pick. That's all.
If they take him in the 3rd round, how much different do you feel?
A lot, honestly. Like, I still wouldn't be in love with it, but I wouldn't be I wouldn't fume as much over it.
Yeah, I think one of those first 2 round picks is just like a full-on no-go.
Oh yeah, no question. And the Packers, as we move to our QB analysis here, we talked about this a little bit. Actually, we talked about this a lot on Friday, but looking into these rookie quarterbacks, Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts are now in a position where they will be sitting on the bench for a while. And yes, run the bases. No, when I say we about the Eagles, that's never going away, fella. That I actually, as a matter of fact, on Sirius, I never say that. I'm very good at, how it's like you wouldn't curse in a job interview. You just kind of, oh, you would, Ben?
Oh yeah. You know me. I'm letting them fly.
You just got to get used to not saying things, but I'm comfortable with you guys. But I digress. Josh, Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts are now sitting behind franchise quarterbacks. It is a very, very strange thing that we are seeing. There's even in dynasty leagues, like dynasty fantasy leagues, these guys are going to be drafted so low because yes, you're drafting for the future in dynasty, but you're drafting here. You're like, all right, well, maybe he plays and starts in 4 years and probably never.
Yeah, I don't. Would you even want Jordan Love? In a dynasty league, would you even want him? So what's the worth? Like, there's no value in that.
Right.
He's not worth a roster spot in a dynasty league.
Like, he got drafted in the first round, and Fantasy Pros has him 32 and Hurts at 33 in a rookie draft.
Yeah.
Like, saying there are 30 plus rookie skill players ranked ahead of them for career.
Yeah, these guys shouldn't play even if the guy in front of them gets hurt.
And they won't if it's immediate injury.
Yeah. They just shouldn't.
And this is what we talk about, and I'll say it again. We've said it time and time again. It's not if Hurts or Love end up being really good, the pick itself, it's still about evaluating where they went relative to what you got. It doesn't mean that these guys couldn't be good. And it doesn't mean that if the Eagles would have got Hurts in the 7th round and he was bad, I would say that's a great pick. Basically no risk. This guy could be I'd be saying a totally different thing. But when you spend a first rounder, when you're the Packers and you're in win now mode, and the Eagles are live, in my opinion, too, to win now, I just don't see it, regardless of if they're good or not. Unless you get a transcendent guy, which I'd be stunned. I really don't see it.
So when you're talking about the quarterbacks that were drafted, right, outside of Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts, who I just kind of wanted to get out of the way early here, knowing that they will have no immediate contribution. You know what? I won't say they won't have any. If they do, okay. Gardner Minshew did it, but also Gardner Minshew was like as late a draft pick as you can get. And there's a lot of this, but point I'm making is those guys, we can't sit here and expect them to, we cannot sit here and expect them to be contributors at all in 2020. There's just zero reason to believe that. But what about Joe Burrow? What about Tua Tagovailoa? Like, are these guys players that you think can immediately contribute as the 1 and 5th pick respectively off the board in this draft?
Yes. I mean, I don't think the Bengals are like an 11-5 team now, but do I think that he's going to come in and be able to play and be a top 32 quarterback in the league? Yeah. Tua, who the hell knows? I mean, that's basically totally just a health question, right?
I mean, I think that's your biggest concern. Yeah.
Joe Burrow does have options. He does have weapons, and that's going to make things interesting. Like, I don't know what AJ Green's status is, but you have AJ Green, you have Tyler Boyd, you just drafted T. Higgins, you have Joe Mixon. There are weapons to be had here, Ben. It's not like he's being drafted onto a team that doesn't have anyone that hasn't given him any offensive help. In Tua's case, you had Devontae Parker, and then you have guys that are very interesting, like Preston Williams. There are some, might be good, might not, got injured last year, started playing well, and then fell off type of players. But I was surprised they didn't take an early running back. And I think Tua is going to have a tougher time as far as his weapons go in his rookie season.
Yeah, I think listen, you know me, where I'm going. I think Justin Herbert clearly has the best weapons.
Oh, yeah.
He has Mike
Absolutely.
Williams. He has Keenan Allen. there's other issues. I think he's the least ready to play of the three. I'm really high on him in life, but I don't think immediately it's going to be some bumps and bruises there. But God, I think of the 3, 2 is probably the most live to contribute right off the bat when you factor in everything. I think Cincinnati's the weakest team, and I think Herbert is the rawest of the three. So by default, I guess I'd go Tua.
Okay. And then once you get to some of the quarterbacks that were drafted later in this draft, I think the only quarterback drafted in the second round was Jalen Hurts. And then you got into the third round and we began to see a little bit more interest, but I don't think outside of your first 6 picks this year, and I'm sorry, I meant the fourth round. I don't think outside of your first, the 3 picks in the top 6 that you're going to see any real immediate contributors. Those are the only guys right now to me that make an immediate difference as rookies, unless you see something I don't like. Jacob Eason to the Colts. James Morgan went to the Jets. So they did see some 4th round picks go off the board, but those are all teams that are just using them, at least for now, as backups.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
No.
And I don't know. I mean, we obviously have the looming question of will the season start on time and all that. How impactful will the OTAs and things be? Will preseason happen? For rookies, that's a huge deal. I don't know what that does to the timetable that these guys are on. It remains to be seen. I mean, I don't want to get too crazy, but I was thinking about this yesterday, and we don't really need to spend time on this. But what would they do if they didn't have a season? Who would get the number 1 pick? Because Trevor Lawrence is just sitting there. And I know there are teams like the Jaguars who certainly plan to be pretty bad and go get him. But I don't know how they would deal with that.
I've got an idea. Abolish the draft.
That's what they should do, but that
You
would
would
never
have to,
happen.
I think. Yeah.
That would be perfect.
I think you would probably have to just not have the draft. Or do you give players another year in college?
Free market.
I mean, free market would be the way they should do it. It would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. It would be so interesting too if you announce if they did it like signing days, people just announcing it and stuff.
Free
God,
market hard cap. Sign me up.
All right,
That
let's
would be
do it right
interesting.
now. Let's say they can't play the season. Where is Trevor Lawrence playing next year?
Jaguars.
Probably Philly.
You think he takes the Jaguars money and not the money over a higher profile team?
I just assume that the Jaguars would if it was hard cap free market, I think they would unload.
You don't think the Eagles would try and match that?
Well, now that they have Hurts, what do they need him for? Come on now.
I don't know.
I'm trying to I think the Redskins are live in that scenario. I think it changes everything. I think it changes everything about the way that we acquire. Yeah. Would the Pats not be like leaders in the clubhouse for something like that?
That's very possible.
The Pats probably would be. Yeah, they probably would be.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. It would be fascinating to see Tampa, because Brady would be done by then.
Yeah.
Without ever playing.
Where's he from, Lawrence?
I think he's from South Carolina.
One thing that shocked me in this draft was the running back position is now most teams, unless you have a McCaffrey or Barkley type talent or an Ezekiel Elliott, they are basically saying, all right, thank you for your contribution as a rookie. We will not be paying you no matter how good you were. We will be drafting someone else. Sayonara. Now, does that mean that everyone will get the same treatment? Not necessarily, but there was a real trend that we saw in this draft. DeAndre Swift to the Lions. I know Kerryon Johnson still got a couple of years to go, but DeAndre Swift to the Lions, backfield timeshare. Jonathan Taylor to the Colts. Marlon Mack entering his final season of a rookie contract. They're going to tell him thank you and goodbye. Cam Akers to the Rams. They don't really have anybody that they like there. Darrell Henderson appears to be someone that McVay has soured on pretty quickly. And Malcolm Brown, I don't have much faith in either. But J.K. Dobbins to the Ravens, not a rookie, but Mark Ingram, final year of his contract. A.J. Dillon to the Packers. This one drove a lot of people nuts. I understand drafting a running back there. I don't understand drafting that running back there Aaron Jones, final year of his rookie contract. Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the Chiefs. There will be a backfield, but Damian Williams ain't going to be there much longer. And then Keyshawn Vaughn to the Bucks. I wish they drafted earlier for a running back. Zach Moss to the Bills, pairing him with Singletary, and Darrington Evans to the Titans. Derrick Henry is franchised right now, so who knows what happens there. Ultimately, Josh, we're seeing the devaluation the devaluing of the running back position right before our eyes. This draft said a lot of that, with teams going out spending early picks on running backs when Marlon Mack had a good year, when Aaron Jones had a good year, right? Like, these guys were good, and the teams still are saying, hey, listen, we got to do this. We're not paying you McCaffrey bucks.
I am fascinated to watch this position grow and change and become more malleable as we move forward. It's changing everything we knew about this sport. Like, it's so hard for me even to just break free from the things that I thought growing up about, like, oh, this is the guy that gets all the carries. He's your running back. And now it's just like, these are the three guys we have. They all have three different unique sets of skills, and they're all viable in their own way. And that just seems so much more obvious to me when I say it out loud. And it's like, why did it take this long to make that transition from now until, I mean, like, just think about 15 years ago, how different this discussion is.
Yeah, there were workhorse backs, Ben, and now there's a large majority of these teams that are either going to have timeshares or they're going to be fine keeping these running backs, but they're not going to pay them as much, or they're just going to say, all right, we'll get a rookie in here, because running backs as rookies, generally speaking, can acclimate quicker than, say, wide receivers or tight ends in the offense. They'll just plug him in and say, it's our offensive line, it's our scheme, it's our run game that makes this team go. It's not a single running back. And to be fair, I think in the case of Aaron Jones, that might actually be true.
In the case of basically all of them, I think it's more true than not.
Agreed.
Listen, the reality is teams are getting smarter, and they now realize that the drop off from the best running backs to just an average running back is just not that much. Of course, there's a difference, but it's not enough where you need to reallocate money and draft really high. These teams, I mean, Cam Akers to me on the Rams has a chance to really explode right out of the gate. They're the one team you mentioned, Darrell Henderson, no Gurley anymore. He had an awful line with Florida State, still put up double-digit touchdowns, 1,000+ yards. He is someone for dynasty leagues I have my eye on. I think he's going to explode stock-wise, though. That's the one caveat.
So do I, because you're going to see a considerable decrease in immediate value for guys like DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if we should, because Taylor's probably going to be the workhorse within a year, like after this year, but they all went to teams that have other running backs that are entrenched in the backfield.
So it's fascinating to see the different. I think the formula that Josh talked about is what we see. You want guys, you want a workhorse back, a power back, a pass catching back, so you can allocate them with different situations. I guess not to, and we're not going to get into this, but my first thought when you said that, Josh, is do you think we ever see it evolve to the quarterback position?
Yeah.
Where you have
the Eagles are trying.
Yeah, maybe they're that innovative. Or is that a position where you actually can't do that? Because it seems like with running back, we have now seen and basically proven it's better to have a great pass catcher, a great power back, than have one guy who can do it all.
Would that be evolution, or would that just be catching up to college? Do you know what I'm asking you?
Yeah, but in college, it's the same guy. You know what I mean?
Don't a lot of teams run like two different quarterbacks?
I mean, the like Tebow Wildcat formation caught on for sure. I guess that's a fair point. There are some teams that rotate quarterbacks, and honestly, it hasn't really worked. I'm not gonna lie.
Interesting.
It's very Luffy. If I'll put it like this, you will be going nuts when these coaches, it's 2nd and 10. Wentz throws an 8-yard pass. Now it's 3rd and 2. Hurts comes in, and it's just no rhyme or reason sometimes why the quarterback gets pulled.
It's going to dismantle our It's going to dismantle our understanding of fantasy football as we know it if they continue to go in this direction.
It should have changed years ago. Fantasy football. You should draft a team's passing, a team's rushing, a team's receiving stats, and not individual players.
Well,
if I have Drew Brees and he gets hurt in the middle of the game, I should just receive.
You're talking about just at the quarterback position. Got you.
No, but across the board, even.
Well, you wouldn't have enough draft slots.
Sure, you would.
How?
You mean in DFS or season long?
Season long.
How would you have enough draft picks?
It makes more sense in DFS to me, honestly.
You're not making as many moves in that scenario. Like pretty much everything is just getting drafted. And if you have, I don't know, what's a good example of a team that sucks at something in particular? Like the Giants receiving game. It's going to take a lot to upgrade that.
But now only one person can draft the Giants receiving team?
Yes.
So they get all, I get it at the QB position, but I don't get it there's so many guys. Like, what about, I want Christian Kirk, but I couldn't get him because DeAndre Hopkins dragged up the Arizona pass catcher so severely.
Take him earlier.
I don't think you'd have enough slots.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. So what? Everyone would have like 4 players or 5.
All right, make it the quarterbacks then.
There you go.
Make it just the quarterback.
Well, I agree with you on that. I'd be okay. I would 100% be okay with that.
Same.
Just like team defense. Yeah.
Yes.
That'll work. Well, and then get rid of that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. That to me makes sense. But I do think the running back position is taking a turn now where you've got basically guys that when you drafted Kerryon Johnson in Dynasty in the first round, you didn't expect them to take DeAndre Swift 2 years later.
No.
Like we're seeing things change before our eyes, and it's scary. And we're going to hit more on this tomorrow, really break down the fantasy value of this draft. We're going to dig deep into the fantasy implications of the draft at every position on tomorrow's show. Meanwhile, while you're at it, hit that thumbs up. It helps us out greatly. We're going to adjust to this new format, continue to make it better. Before we head out, Josh, Ben, anything to say?
So we got Monday Night Football tonight. Real good game. I believe it's Packers-Chiefs semifinals of the ENFL, 8 o'clock Eastern. So obviously go support Spags and the crew. Real good game. Go win some cash. Daily challenge will be up. And like Lofty said, we're going to be getting into the best ball season-long DFS implications of these rookies. I have a couple hot takes that I saved for tomorrow. A couple running backs kind of down the way that I think could make an immediate impact.
Josh?
The three of us will be back obviously tomorrow morning, but we will also be back tomorrow night with the Eastern Conference Finals, Bucks, Nets, Giannis versus KD. That should be an absolute bloodbath because I don't know what to make of the Bucks. They have had 2 very different experiences so far in this tournament.
Looked like the best and one of the worst teams in consecutive games. I'm still going Bucks here. I think Giannis is too damn good. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Subscribe, hit that notification bell before you leave. 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. It's the Awesemo Morning Show. See you back here bright and early.